a shocking murder, heroin addiction, and onstage fights. Jane's Addiction were one of alternative rock's standout acts in the 90s, but behind all that success, the band and its members endured countless tragedies. Perry Farrell is a flashy rock star who parlayed his status as the frontman of Jane's Addiction into side careers as a music festival organizer, concert promoter, and philanthropist. Farrell's personality and philosophies take inspiration from both of his parents. He told Spin, "My dad was a real character, a fun guy. He was a jewelry designer and repairman. I got a lot of creativity from him. My mother was a fine artist. She loved to take throwaway things and make art out of them." In late 1962, when Farrell was 3 years old, his mother died by suicide. Farrell told The Guardian, "I remember it, yeah. There are some things that have deep-seated emotions for me, but you can't change it and you move on." According to Farrell's former partner, Casey Nicole, the musician pinned his mother's suicide on his father, Al Bernstein. Nicole told Spin, "Perry blamed him for his mother's death. Al was bringing a lot of women into the house and doing drugs and stuff when he was younger." Jane's Addiction guitarist Dave Navarro was raised by divorced parents. He primarily lived with his mother, model Connie Navarro. In 1983, the elder Navarro split up with a boyfriend, John Riccardi, and he responded with extreme violence. Navarro told The Howard Stern Show in 2001.
He had broken into the house and kind of held me up and handcuffed me and basically got pretty violent and then let me go.
A week later, Riccardi returned to the Navarro home in West Los Angeles and killed Connie Navarro. The musician was 15 years old at the time, and he went to live with his father, who resided nearby. Riccardi was the main suspect in the murder case, and he avoided capture by police for nearly 8 years. When he was finally apprehended in 1991 after his case was featured on America's Most Wanted, Riccardi was convicted for the double murder and received the death penalty. In 2012, the death sentence was overturned, then converted into life in prison with no possibility of parole. Following the breakup of his band Psycom, Farrell formed a new act in 1985, recruiting Eric Avery to play bass guitar. Avery brought in his childhood pal Chris Brinkman to be the lead guitarist in the initial lineup of the group that would eventually be known as Jane's Addiction. However, Brinkman had a significant problem with substance abuse, and after around 18 months as the band's guitarist, he was fired. In 1997, Brinkman overdosed. His unresponsive body was discovered in a motel in Hollywood. Brinkman was 31 years old. The Jane, name-checked in Jane's Addiction, and the central character of the band's 1988 breakthrough hit Jane Says, are actually the same Jane, and she's a real person. In 1985, Farrell and bassist Eric Avery lived in a home and rehearsal space in Los Angeles with several other people, including a woman named Jane Bainter. Farrell and Bainter eventually became fast friends. She was heavily dependent on heroin, which inspired Farrell to name his group Jane's Addiction. Jane Says consists primarily of phrases uttered by a woman addicted to drugs, who doesn't want to be and who feels trapped in a controlling and abusive relationship with a man named Sergio. Bainter told Spin in an interview, "Sergio was a drug dealer who lived nearby. I was strung out and he was using that to manipulate me." In 2018, Dave Navarro shared his personal history with suicidal ideation. The guitarist wrote in an Instagram post he later deleted, "I have been there, written the note, had the plan, the stockpile of meds, how to disperse my property among my family. I was ready to go. Luckily, as a last-ditch effort, I reached out. I spoke to my closest friends and loved ones. I sought therapy and, at times, psychiatry, alternative medicines, even hospitalization, whatever it took." On a 2021 episode of the podcast Appetite for Distortion, Navarro discussed his mental health and how getting a handle on it is an ongoing process. After revealing to the host that he has suffered from depression his entire life, Navarro added,
"I'm here to tell you that there is no external thing that is going to fix the deep-rooted problem of trauma."
For about 3 decades, addiction clouded Dave Navarro's life. While he played guitar for Jane's Addiction in the 1980s, he was a heavy user of cocaine and heroin. The latter is a particularly risky substance, and Navarro was aware of the danger. He told HuffPost Live in 2014, "When I picked up a syringe and shot heroin for my first time, I knew goddamn well all the possible consequences attached to that. I had friends who had died, heroes of mine who had died, and I did it anyway." Jane's Addiction broke up in 1991, for which Navarro takes the blame. He told Spin, I admit I totally blew it with drugs back in those days. My intake was certainly a factor in the eventual demise of the band the first time around. Navarro so closely associated Jane's addiction with heroin that when the band reunited in 1997, his sobriety immediately ended. He recalled on his Dark Matter podcast, "The second I got into the room for the Jane's addiction rehearsal, it was like, this would be so much better on heroin." Farrell helped Navarro acquire heroin, and he suffered a lengthy relapse, using the drug throughout the tour. Navarro sought out sobriety in the late 1990s, first quitting heroin and cocaine, and then all intravenous drugs. After enduring at least one relapse, which involved opiates, cocaine, and crack, Navarro kicked his addictions in 2016. Throughout his time in Jane's addiction, Perry Farrell's drug use was such an open secret that in 1993, Rolling Stone's readers named him rock star most likely to die in the next year. Heroin and cocaine were the musician's substances of choice, dating back to when Jane's addiction formed in the mid-1980s. Farrell's partner, Casey Nicole, told Spin, "When Perry and I first started dating, we did heroin together a few times, long before it became a problem. We thought of it as a way of opening up our creativity." Nearly every member of Jane's addiction in its first era found themselves addicted to heroin. Meanwhile, Farrell told Hits magazine at the time that, unlike the other guys in his band, he had no plans to get clean. He proclaimed heroin to be great, and when asked to weigh in on its dangers, quipped, "So's driving. You take your chances." The group's 1990 album Ritual de lo Habitual, referring to the ritualistic nature of habits, got its name from Farrell's substance abuse. Farrell told Guitar World, "In those days, we were hitting speedballs really hard. Our daily life would consist of waking up, going to a spoon, drawing back heroin cocaine admixtures, slamming them, and getting your day going. So that was our daily ritual."
I was loaded for practically 40 years.
Farrell never seemed to consider his drug use a real problem, but admitted since becoming a father to 3 sons, he knew he needed to dial it back. Perry told The Guardian in 2020, "There's a certain time of life to experiment because you have the energy, you've got the mind, but I don't want anyone to get hurt. I don't want anyone to die. I've lost loved ones over it, but I can't lie to you and say I haven't benefited from it either." The highest tier of late 80s and early 90s alternative rock bands is akin to a brotherhood. The musicians who comprised bands like Jane's Addiction, Stone Temple Pilots, and Soundgarden mingled on the charts, on tour, and backstage at concerts and music industry events. Friendships developed out of common musical interests and aims. And when the people in that small, tight-knit circle die, the intense grief over their loss radiates. In December 2015, when Stone Temple Pilots frontman Scott Weiland died of a drug overdose at age 48, Navarro broke the news on X. Farrell also released a statement of condolence to Billboard. He wrote, "He had a way of getting into the music like few people can. He contributed songs we'll never forget to the musical library the whole world sings." In May 2017, 52-year-old Soundgarden singer Chris Cornell died by suicide in his hotel room after a concert in Detroit. Farrell, who met Cornell during the 1992 Lollapalooza Festival tour and later befriended him, memorialized the singer for Variety. He wrote, "Chris was one of the most talented singers of my life. I don't know what did Chris in, but I hope he's in a good place now. He was a super talent and the world should be happy they got to hear him."
So to not have Chris around, it hurts.
In May 2024, Jane's Addiction announced that it would be embarking on a U.S. tour that would include all 4 original members, Farrell, Navarro, Stephen Perkins, and Eric Avery. The band even had 2 new songs they had created together in 2023 and 2024, which was the first new music from Jane's Addiction in more than 10 years. The tour seemed to start out without any real hitches. By the New York shows on September 10th and 11th, however, one person took to the social media site Threads to call the show a train wreck. The person wrote, "Perry was on another planet, forgetting words, mumbling, singing the chorus during the verse, wandering off stage for long periods. The band sounded tight, and Dave looked super." Some commenters had similar experiences, while others said the shows they saw were great. Days later, Farrell got into a physical altercation with Navarro on stage in Boston during the middle of a song, effectively ending the show and the tour. A public explanation first came from a post on Instagram by Farrell's wife. Then, a few days later, Perry finally released a public statement to Billboard, saying, "This weekend has been incredibly difficult, and after having some time and space to reflect, it is only right that I apologize to my bandmates, especially Dave Navarro. fans, family, and friends for my actions during Friday's show. Unfortunately, my breaking point resulted in inexcusable behavior, and I take full accountability for how I chose to handle the situation. After news broke that the band's 2024 reunion tour was ending early, fans were left heartbroken. According to Billboard, a source close to Farrell said, "He realizes that he waited too long to prioritize his well-being. His exhaustion and the toll it has taken on both his physical and mental health has gone too far." They also said Perry feels badly that he let down his family and his fans. Navarro, Perkins, and Avery also released a joint statement saying they couldn't see a way around canceling the rest of the tour. Forming in the mid-1980s, the members of Jane's Addiction had been through nearly 4 decades of playing music together. In that time, they've all dealt with their own addictions, tragedies, triumphs, and evolving relationships, and they were upset that it had to end this way. The 3 members said on Instagram that they felt compelled to cancel the tour due to Farrell's behavior and mental health difficulties. The band members went on to add, "Our concern for his personal health and safety, as well as our own, has left us no alternative. We hope that he will find the help he needs. We can see no solution that would either ensure a safe environment on stage or reliably allow us to deliver a great performance on a nightly basis. Our hearts are broken. If you or anyone you know needs help with addiction issues, help is available. Visit the Substance Abuse and Mental Health Services Administration website or contact SAMHSA's National Helpline at 1-800-662-HELP, 1-800-662-4357.